Mr. President, today I'm joining my colleagues on the floor with a bit of confusion, a bit of disappointment, frankly, a lot of questions. I'm referring to the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch as the next Supreme Court Justice. As a United States Senator, one of the most consequential votes that I will cast is a vote to confirm a U.S. Supreme Court nominee. It is a lifetime appointment to our nation's highest court. I recently spoke with some students back in Montana, some FFA students. Average age, 17, 18 years old. And God willing, Neil Gorsuch may serve on the court for 30 or more years. These FFA students, children, and perhaps even grandchildren will be part of Neil Gorsuch's time on the court, given that he likely will serve for 3 decades or more. As it stands today, the United States Senate is on the precipice of confirming Neil Gorsuch to be our next U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice. However, as the news is reporting, as our Twitter feeds are overflowing with information, it looks as though my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are caving. They're caving to the pressures of the far left, and they're set to unleash an unprecedented filibuster. I've met with Judge Gorsuch. I've watched his confirmation hearings. And what I have seen, and what most Americans agree, Judge Neil Gorsuch has been incredibly transparent. He's been accessible. He is the right man for the position. He is mainstream. He's a Westerner. He's committed to judicial independence. He has a brilliant legal mind. That's without dispute. He's exceptionally qualified. In fact, the American Bar Association unanimously rated Judge Gorsuch as well qualified. That's its highest rating. He's met with nearly 80 senators. Prior to his hearing, he provided the Judiciary Committee over 70 pages of written answers about his personal record. He provided 75,000 plus pages of documents, including speeches, case briefs, opinions, and written works going as far back as his college days. The White House archives produced over 180,000 pages of email and paper records related to Judge Gorsuch's time at the Department of Justice. Judge Gorsuch sat for 3 rounds of questioning, totaling nearly 20 hours in committee. And as the American people watched Judge Gorsuch before that committee, they saw an exceptionally qualified nominee for the highest court in the land. Someone who was bright, who was kind. I would argue that Judge Gorsuch's mind, his intellectual capacities, are only exceeded by the size of his heart. This is a kind and independent jurist. This was the longest hearing, when he came before the Judiciary Committee, the longest hearing of any 21st century nominee. He answered nearly 1,200 questions during his hearing, which is nearly twice as many questions posed to Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, or Ginsburg. He was given 299 questions for the record by Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee, the most in recent history of any Supreme Court nominee. Judge Gorsuch did all this with the utmost integrity, with transparency, and humility. Yet here we are, with Democrats engaged in unprecedented obstruction, refusing to give Neil Gorsuch an up or a down vote. The Senate has only ever employed a cloture motion for a Supreme Court nominee 4 times in modern history. We voted on cloture when Justice Alito was nominated in 2006. We did the same in 1968, 1971, and 1986. In 1991, Clarence Thomas was confirmed on a 52-48 vote. And in 2006, Samuel Alito was confirmed on a 58-42 vote. In fact, when President Obama was in the White House, Republicans did not filibuster a nominee. In fact, this body confirmed Sonia Sotomayor in 2009 by a vote of 68 to 31, confirmed Justice Kagan by a roll call vote of 63 to 37 in 2010. We did not filibuster. Let me remind folks, cloture is in place to stop debate, not to stop a vote. Cloture was put in place to speed the Senate up, to end debate and move to a vote, not to stop a vote. It was never intended to be a stall tactic or something to obstruct this body. This bears repeating. Cloture was put in place to speed up the process, to prevent obstruction. This chamber has never had a partisan filibuster to a Supreme Court nominee. Let me say that again. This chamber has never had a partisan filibuster to a Supreme Court nominee. And so here we are today, with no other option but to invoke the so-called nuclear option to put an eminently qualified individual on the United States Supreme Court. Judge Gorsuch is the definition of a mainstream judge. In more than 2,700 cases he has participated on in the 10th Circuit, 97% of them have been decided unanimously. In fact, he was in the majority 99% of the time. Yet Senate Democrats would rather play politics and place the demands of extreme liberal interests rather than ensuring regular order. But let's talk about what we are and what we aren't doing. We are, in the Senate, a chamber I'm honored to serve and represent over 1 million Montanans. We operate on a set of parliamentary criteria based on things which have happened before. Therefore, we are going to establish a new precedent. We aren't changing the rules. This isn't happening for the first time. Let us remember that in November of 2013, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid established a new precedent of how many votes are necessary on executive branch nominees with the exclusion of Supreme Court picks. What's even more shocking to me is that over the past few weeks, through the hearing process, through the debate and discussions about Judge Gorsuch on the floor, and with support from across my state of Montana, and let me just name some of those organizations and people in support of Judge Gorsuch: the Montana Chamber of Commerce, 4 of Montana's tribes, the CSKT, the Crow Tribe, Fort Belknap, and Fort Peck, the support of the Montana Farm Bureau, the support of Judge Russell Fagg of the 13th Judicial District, Judge Jeffrey Langton of the 21st Judicial District, Judge John Larson of the 4th Judicial District, State Senator Nell Swandell, retired judge from the 6th Judicial District, has endorsed Gorsuch. The Montana NRA members, the Montana Grain Growers Association, the Montana Wool Growers Association, the Montana Stock Growers Association, our Attorney General in Montana, our auditor in Montana, our Speaker of the House. This is a very mainstream group of Montanans, leaders back home that are in support of Judge Gorsuch. Yet my colleagues are rejecting the will of the American people, rejecting the will of Montanans, and filibustering this nomination, not even allowing for an up or down vote. The American people deserve a Supreme Court justice who upholds the rule of law and will follow the Constitution. The American people deserve a Supreme Court justice who doesn't legislate from the bench. The American people deserve Judge Neil Gorsuch to serve on the United States Supreme Court.